Hello and welcome to Catamount Community Connection, our weekly public affairs program here on Catamount Radio. And each week we talk with professional, business, nonprofit, and political leaders of the community. Want to make you aware of what's going on, not just in Rutland County, but throughout the state. We do have some new laws that the governor signed into law last week, and we'll go over those in just a second. Our program, as always, is brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846. And we are looking forward to the 179th fair coming up August 12th through the 16th, 2025. Yes, at the Rutland Fairgrounds. And we are extremely happy this morning to welcome in Robert Congdon, who is president of not just the Vermont State Fair, but all the fairs in the state of Vermont. And I see him on occasion up at the State House, so it's always good to welcome him back. And it's been a while, Robert, but welcome back.
It has. Thank you very much for having me, Brian, and thank you for all of your support of the fairs up in Montpelier. And you're right, I think the last time we did see each other was under the Golden Dome. So
that's right. Yeah, you were in the Agriculture Committee, on which I sit, and then I'm sure later that day in the Institutions Committee. And not a lot of money necessarily gets to the fairs. I think it's about $900,000, and then you split it up with all the fairs, so you wind up with budget dust, if you will. But it does help out, I'm sure, and you folks use it for, I guess, construction stuff when needed, but also the medals and stuff, the fair things that you give out during the Vermont State Fair, right?
Yeah. So putting on my State Fairs Association hat for a minute, all of the fairs are very appreciative of that money. It's broke down ultimately into two pots, basically. It goes into what we call the stipend fund, which all of the fairs have access. There's certain requirements that they have to fulfill to do that. They have to operate more than 2 consecutive days, and they have to be, meet certain requirements to have access to that. But like you said, for so many of us, it's really the premium money that goes out, that it comes in and goes right back out as we pay the prizes out. So if you enter your pie and you win a premium, you're getting some of that stipend funds. And then many people have enjoyed the capital funds on our fairgrounds. The fact that it's really done most of the restroom upgrades that we've done, major upgrades. The most recent, which hopefully people saw last year and certainly will see this year, is the 4-H building had a lot of work done in there last year, and that's was all really seeded by the stipend fund, or not stipend, sorry, capital campaign capital fund. So that was really instrumental for many fairs, and chances are, if you're seeing new builds on fairgrounds, at least part of it's coming out of that capital fund. Yeah,
I wound up being a member of the committee that decides who gets what. That was my first year last year, and of course I have a special affinity for the Rutland Fair, the Vermont State Fair at Rutland, so I made sure that you got what you normally would get. Always felt on the Institutions Committee when I sat on it that we could maybe do a little bit more each year, but it seemed like it was always kind of the same amount over and over and over again, which I guess is okay too.
Sure.
I always like to at least see a little bit of an increase, but sometimes that's not possible. So I mentioned last week, Governor Scott did sign, I'm looking at probably 8 or 9 bills, and he did sign a few the week before. Last week was H-106, an act relating to selling real property within a FEMA mapped flood hazard area. H-209, an act relating to intranasal epinephrine in schools. H-238, an act relating to the phase-out of consumer products containing added perfluoroalcohol and polyfluoroalcohol substances. H-266, an act relating to the 340B prescription drug pricing program. That had an impact on the Rutland Regional Medical Center. H-321, an act relating to miscellaneous cannabis amendments. H-397, and this came out of my committee in government operations, miscellaneous amendments to the statutes governing emergency management and flood response. And hopefully we did a good job with that. In that bill were the local option taxes, and we decided to increase the proportion of what the local community could keep. So for a long time, and I know Rutland Town and Rutland City both have the local options tax, and so it was split 70-30. The local community got 70% of what came in, and the rest of the 30% was sent up to the state to fund what is called the pilot program, which stands for payment in lieu of taxes. Some of this stuff is just mind-boggling. And we changed that this year to 75-25. So the local municipalities will be able now to keep 5% more, 75%, and the other 25% will go up to the state. So that passed and was signed into law last week. H472, an act relating to professions and occupations related or regulated, I should say, by the Office of Professional Regulation. And there is a local connection there. And I do want to say hi to Mike Bruno if he's listening this morning. I spoke with him last week, and he told me he actually does listen to the program every Sunday morning. And part of that bill deleted the requirement that the Office of Professional Regulation had jurisdiction over racing, car racing, vehicle racing in the state. So in essence, the folks who run, in his case, Devil's Bowl Speedway, but also Thunder Road up north and anything else that has to do with racing in the state of Vermont, they in essence had two bosses. The insurance companies, who are the big boss, and they decide, as you probably are well aware, Robert, how far away the crowd has to sit for your demo derbies. Same thing with the racing at Devil's Bowl, where they have in the corners not allowed spectators to sit, and they have to have a fence there and make sure that everybody's safe. So the insurance company really, or companies, I guess, decide a lot of that, and you got to pay premiums and all that sort of stuff. But then on top of that, the Office of Professional Regulation also had jurisdiction over what was going on. So we deleted that, and it now is not part of the job of OPR, the Office of Professional Regulation. So that was something that I know Mike Bruno was happy to see deleted. And in fact, the OPR folks themselves didn't want to do it anymore. They felt that the insurance companies were doing a good enough job, and they didn't need, in essence, to be overseen by two entities. And then finally last week, and we'll talk with you now about this, H484, which was an act relating to miscellaneous agricultural subjects. And in that bill, and I'm remembering it was a 45-plus page bill, but in there, I did manage to tuck in a little provision in Section 4, and I'll just read what it says. It's on page 26 of the bill, in case anybody's interested. And it says, no stormwater impact fee or completion of an offset shall be required for the Rutland County Agricultural Society, Inc., under the 3-acre stormwater permit required by Title 10, Section 1264, provided that the society, the fair, is registered with the Agency of Agriculture, Food, and Markets. And certainly the Ag Agency, you are registered with them. So in essence, it's a stopgap measure. I'll be very honest. It's not everything I wanted it to be. I wanted just to be totally exempt from anything having to do with the 3-acre stormwater permit. But I could read the tea leaves, so to speak, and I knew that wasn't going to be a bill that would be passed in the Senate. So this was in there, and with due respect and appreciation and thanks to the Secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources, Julie Moore, we did manage to get that particular provision in there. So it does relieve a little bit of the pressure. It gives you a little bit more breathing room, I guess is the way I would put it, to come into compliance. You do still have to do some engineering studies, but I'll let you address that. And hopefully at least this partly alleviate some of the angst that I know, because I've had people come up to me and say, "Hey, what is this? I hear that this might be the last fair in Rutland this year." And I said, "No, I don't think so. We do have some more work to do up north to make sure that it's not the last one." But so there are people listening, and the public has become a little bit more engaged than they were.
Yeah, there's definitely, certainly, like you said, Brian, this gives us a little bit of breathing room. The engineering studies are still required, which is certainly something that's heavy and looming kind of over us right now. So that's going to be one of the next steps that we're going to be working with our engineer and having that conversation. There was some other monies that is a separate piece from this provision that you were able to get through that appear right now that they're going to be opened up to cover the engineering cost, which is also another kind of relief in the midst of all this. We haven't seen that exactly in black and white yet. We're still hoping that's going to come down from the agencies, and because that's a hefty price tag. We also, and this may be news to you, so the reality is that the reimbursement process for all of this is taking forever. We've submitted for our first phase reimbursements in February and have not yet received them. We're mid-June now, so the money flowing is certainly something for engineering that we're going to be having a conversation with the agency about, because we made it very clear we can't pay up front for that. That's going to have to come out of that pot, so to speak, and cover the engineering probably up front, because the fair doesn't have $150,000 that we can just write a check for. So that, we're still working on those finer details. As you said, these provisions offer us a little bit of breathing room. We don't have to go off-site now to try to figure out, okay, they can't build it there, so do they buy land? Do they have to purchase an easement from somebody else nearby and put a stormwater system off-site of the fairgrounds? So that's a relief. We're not going to have to do that now. And the impact fees are also another portion of this that, we're looming. We, at the initial, and the number is likely to go up, at the initial figures, we were estimated right around like I'll say between 150 and 200,000 to be loose with impact fees. So $150,000 to $200,000 now is again, some of that breathing room has been taken off the table. We're not going to have to do that. If the engineering finds that it's significantly more than that. So, for example, if you can't build a system to treat part of the fairgrounds, it automatically transitions from the system build to impact fees. So, if that happens, this bill, again, provides the breathing room that as that number goes up, that number is not actually money that's going to come due from us. So, maybe it's a little cynical sounding, but I kind of hope that number grows, because the less that we are in an interesting, and we've had multiple conversations on this program, we are in a really interesting situation where our entire infrastructure almost has to be rebuilt in this process, and massive storage compartments underground for stormwater, which actually one of those would have to go out in the middle of the oval. It would have to be built to spec so cars could park on top of it. And another portion is out by the Mandigo Arena and the cattle barns. Those are two very, very difficult areas to build in. We have ground that really does not perk well on the fairgrounds. Once you get down, 4 feet, 4 feet, you're into clay, and the water just sits there. You're in the water table. So there's lots of these things that engineering is going to have to determine. And again, the breathing room that has now been bought, so to speak, is we've been told our engineering is going to take at least a year, possibly longer, could be a year and a half. So at this point, to get that engineering process rolling, first off, we're going to have some of those provisions from the state out of that pot of money I was mentioning earlier. We've got to get those details worked out so that the engineering, engineers don't work for nothing. So they've got to figure out how the checks are going to start flowing to them. And then the process has to start. And most of the fairs that I'm aware of, there's three others in the state that are facing this as well. Mm-hmm. Their permitting process, when they get to that point, has been taking back and forth with the state at least 6 months. So that's a part of that, year to 2 years that we're going to be in, because once your engineer draws everything up, the state agencies have to weigh it and look at it and bounce it back and forth. And I've been told, months have gone by in that process before an actual permit is even issued. And then you actually put the shovels in the ground, and you require it over the course of however long they give you. For most, it's 3 to 5 years to actually do the builds. And I continue not to go down this road because we've been down it multiple times, but I continue to just be, I guess, amazed and astounded at this whole thing. And most businesses are, whether they're nonprofit or for-profit. The reality is, I think, and I want to say that list of properties in the state is somewhere around 700 properties or something. Yep. And just 2 months ago, the question got asked, how many properties are actually have made it through the process and are compliant? And the answer is 4. At least it was at that time. So, the other thing is, I know leagues of cities and towns. I've been watching some of their stuff on it, and the price tag per acre in the state of Vermont, as far as what this is actually costing to do it, was absolutely astounding. I want to say it was $150,000 to $200,000 per acre, which everybody, of course, as you know, is looking to the state to cover those costs because we don't have it. So that's the kind of astounding part of it. And then there have started to be, even out from some of what I'm reading, even out of the environmental community, that are starting to say, well, this was supposed to pay off in Lake Champlain a lot more than what they're seeing. They're not seeing for what is actually getting pumped in for the spend, the money, the lowering of, ultimately in this area, we're looking at phosphorus. The phosphorus levels are not coming down what they wanted to see. So, this is a conundrum. I think you're right. I think in January, when you go back, I think it's going to be another major discussion. I think the headaches and the fight over this issue certainly are not over, not behind us.
We're talking to Robert Congdon, who is the president of both the Rutland County Agricultural Society, Inc., we call it the Vermont State Fair at Rutland, and also president of all of the fairs in the state of Vermont. And there's so much to unpack here with this 3-acre rule. I'll just, as quickly as I can, go through it for those of you that are not familiar with it yet. If you own 3 acres of land or more, that is considered impervious. That is, it doesn't perk. It doesn't let the storm water, we're not talking about wastewater, we're talking about storm water. It doesn't allow the storm water to settle into the earth or go somewhere else. And it affects so many things. Municipal parking lots, school parking lots, car dealerships, anybody that has paved or, by the way, gravel is also considered impervious. So there are just so many things to take into account. And so if you own 3 acres or more and it doesn't perk, you have to figure out a way to mitigate the environmental impact, if you will, of stormwater. And you can build a retention pond if you want. You can pump it somewhere else where someone else has to take care of it. You could do a lot of different things. It took in 4 of the fairs. So the Champlain Valley Fair, which is the state's biggest, up in Essex Junction. The Lake Memphremagog is also included in this, and one of them does flow into that lake. I think Orleans does.
Yeah, Orleans, yeah.
And then Addison, which is the Addison County Field Days. And then, of course, the Vermont State Fair here in Rutland. So those are the 4. But the Rutland Fair is in a completely different situation than the other 3, who all are, it's a pain in the neck for them to do it, but they have figured out ways that they can come into compliance. And I was astonished that the Department of Environmental Conservation had never been to the Rutland Fair until this past spring, when they did come down and walked around the area with Robert and some of our legislators and discovered, I think much to someone's surprise, that the fair on the, let's see, it would be the north end of it, I think, if I'm looking north and south, maybe it's east and west, the federal, there's a railroad there, okay? The railroad tracks go by it, And that's federal property, and there's nothing that the fair is going to be able to do about changing anything there. That's up to Uncle Sam. On the other side, it's bordered by a state highway, which again puts a constraint on anything that you could possibly do on that end. And then the other two sides of the fair are both residential neighborhoods. So the fair is in a really different situation than the other three, and literally are hamstrung to find a way to come into compliance with this, without digging up the fairgrounds where the Ferris wheel or the roller coaster goes and saying, well, it was nice seeing you here last year, but we can't have you here anymore. And the ticket prices would suffer at some point, to the extent that people couldn't go anymore because it would be too costly. So in 25 words or less, it's probably a lot more than that. That's what we're facing, not just with the fair, but a lot of businesses in Rutland County. And as Robert correctly pointed out, there's over 700 properties that are affected by this 3-acre rule that all go into either Lake Champlain or Lake Memphremagog. So, and it's all phosphorus related. It is. There's a TMDL, total maximum daily load, that we're not supposed to go above. And it's funny how things go. It seems like every agency comes in every year and ask for more positions. They need more people. They need more workers to get their jobs done. And yet, if we do, it doesn't seem like the delay process is ever any better than it was before we put new people to work. So in other words, for you to have filed your initial thing in February and not have gotten any sort of resolution to that, and we're now in the middle of June, seems to me not the way it should be. It should be a much faster process, and I don't understand, quite frankly, why it isn't sometimes, because we do keep giving them more and more people, and so the budget keeps going up.
Sure,
but the delays don't seem to get any shorter, and it just amazes me.
Well, it's also your typical government story, Brian. How bureaucracy works. We get the email every other week. Oh, we're still looking at your stuff. Oh, we're still looking at your stuff. And then I think it was about 4 weeks ago, I got the email. Oh, your stuff's been approved, but now you're going to have to wait another 6 to 8 weeks before we can, finally get to, so it is, you're right. It is kind of astounding. And I know, just having been connected with the select board in Clarendon here, I know how the wheels of government work. I know how slowly sometimes things move, but the reality is, and sometimes I think what gets lost is on the other end of those emails and on the other end of those, businesses that are facing those types of situations, they've still got bills to pay, and they've laid out the money, and all that's going on. So hopefully there's resolution to that soon.
Yeah, I mean, maybe my mental image of the bureaucracy that we support so well, in my view, is someone sitting at a desk with stacks of paper, and all they do is move it from one pile to the other. And it's like nothing ever actually gets done or decided. And maybe that's unfair. And if it is, I apologize to those of you who are bureaucrats listening. But it's very, very frustrating, again, to try to do the right thing. And 99% of Vermonters try to do the right thing. And to just continually get, well, we haven't had a chance yet. Well, okay, what are you doing all day? I don't want to go off that because I'll get myself in a lot of trouble. And we do need to take our first break here on Catamount Community Connection. We're talking to Robert Congdon from the Vermont State Fair, and we'll be back with more in just a minute. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection. I'm your host, Brian Collamore. Each and every Sunday, we put together an hour of public affairs programming. And today we're talking with Robert Congdon, who is president of the Rutland County Agricultural Society, better known as the Vermont State Fair, and also all the fairs in the state of Vermont. And it's always good to be able to talk to Robert. So we've talked a lot about the 3-acre rule and the concern, not just with the fairs, but with a lot of both private and public entities. And we're talking about municipal parking lots, schools, businesses that have the 3 acres or more of impervious surface. But let's put that aside for just a moment and talk about something that's a little more interesting and fun, hopefully, and that's the Vermont State Fair, which is coming up again, August 12th through the 16th at the fairgrounds here in Rutland. But before the fair, we also have something coming up on the 4th of July, right?
Yeah, so Summer Smash is back this year. Again, it's become a staple for Rutland and the surrounding areas. So everybody will be able to come down. We're going to have a vendor market behind the grandstand like we've had the last several years with, of course, your first taste of fair food you'll be able to snag as well. And vendors selling their various items, and then of course everything kicks off that evening on the Diamonds and More grandstand with the Summer Smash, brought to you by DNA Motorsports. Yet again this year, they do a great show, they do a great job, and we're looking forward to that. And tickets are already on sale for that as well. ParamountVT.org is where you want to go to the Heritage Family Credit Union box office and pick up your tickets for that and get those purchased, so that you don't have to wait in that long line on the 4th of July at the ticket windows. So,
and then there's a commercial truck show right before the fair, right?
That is true. So yeah, there's a group of the fair board that are just doing an absolutely phenomenal job putting this together. The reality behind this is Vermont in general has not had a large working truck show. Like, this is literally your companies like Casella, the Markowskis, the Fabians, all of these major companies that, by the way, also do a great job putting on the convoy at Christmas time. This is another opportunity for those companies to come out and shine up their big trucks and have the public come out, see them. It's a great opportunity for kids as well to come down and be able to check out just heavy equipment, large pieces of equipment. And it's a judged show, though, so they can walk away with trophies. They all are really doing a great job. Many businesses have sponsored this. It's growing. Last year was the first time we did it. We actually paired it last year with the monster trucks that were here in September. And we very quickly realized, you know what, this is turning into something. We've got to do this on its own. So the weekend before the fair, so the first weekend in August, this will be taking place, and should be an absolute great time. And again, I hope everybody can come down and check this out and see what is on the fairgrounds. And everybody's got their awesome trucks shined up and lots to see.
Yeah. Then the fair. So we've got a 5-day fair starting on the 12th of August, running through the 17th, and you have probably signed somebody has signed a contract with some of the country acts that might be coming in. But maybe we could talk about those, and also maybe a new ride or two. And certainly, as I keep bringing up every time I see you, the racing pigs, they'll be back because they're a real popular thing. It's amazing how many people line that, the walkway that's going by where they have the little thing set up, and they just stand there for hours waiting for the next show. But anyway.
Yeah, so I guess we can start with the Diamonds and More grandstand lineup, because that's really the highlights of each day. So again, the 12th through the 16th is the fair. On the 12th, we're going to open with a Pond Hill rodeo. That's kind of become a tradition as well. We have the rodeo that opens everything up so that'll be Tuesday evening. On Wednesday this year, we are bringing in Northeast Sled Services, which not everybody may recognize the name, but if you go to Tunbridge's tractor pulls, if you go to some of the other fairs in the area's tractor pulls, these are more along the lines of your antique tractors, your working tractors. So it's not necessarily the big souped up ones that you see in other places, but they have a very large following, and we're going to have Northeast Sled Services running tractor pulls in front of the grandstand on Wednesday evening. And that is, for this year, the show that's included in admission. So you're not going to have to pay extra to get on the grandstand that night. Once you get in the gate, you can wander in and out and check out that show. On Thursday, we're going to be doing another DNA Motorsports Demolition Derby. That'll be the fair show, the fair Demolition Derby. Again, also another great time. They've just had great car counts and put on great shows for everyone. Friday evening, we're going to have RPM Promotions flat track motorcycle racing back. So that came last year, and we did it for the first time. And not a lot of people, I think, realized what we were doing. Not a lot of people realized what was coming. And it was, I'll tell you, just to see those, they on the back stretch and the front stretch, they were breaking 100 miles an hour. I mean, they were just really cruising around the track. And we got a lot of people that came and said, you know what, this is going to grow. Keep it coming. Let's do it again. So the Fair Board committed to the contract again. They're here, and it's going to be under the lights again. So, again, we touted last year that a major accomplishment was to get the track, and especially the lit track at night, getting used again. So under the lights on Friday, we'll be doing that. And then the highlight that I just keep on hearing, I have to be honest, when we booked Oliver Anthony, I didn't even really realize the following he had and who he was. And, our partners over at the Paramount, Eric, does a great job searching out talent. And he says, I really think this is a great fair act. And sure enough, I think it's yesterday or the day before, he went top on the iTunes charts again with his new hit that just dropped, and he's definitely got star power. So Oliver Anthony, and the tickets are going fast on those, so folks are going to want to get to ParamountVT.org and get their tickets for that. Look him up, check him out. He's an interesting act just because he has made his way, I would say, and I know this is maybe a dangerous thing to say on the radio, Brian, but he's kind of an anti-radio guy. He's been a streaming, more than anything. Yep. That's really where he made his start, and that's where he's hung his hat, so to speak. And whether it's YouTube or iTunes or whatever, he's geared towards the streaming crowd. And again, the people that are coming up to me saying, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe you got him." He's coming. And even one of our grounds acts reached out to me yesterday and said, "You got Oliver Anthony? Really? Is that? Am I reading this right?"
Wow.
So yeah, we're really excited about that, and ticket sales are going really well, and we want to continue. Hopefully it's going to be a sellout show. That's the reality.
It sounds like a phenomenon much like maybe Keith Urban, who at one point he wasn't anybody. I mean, he was just, and if the timing is right, and it's all about timing, and you sign him right before one of the songs drops and goes to number one in a week, and all of a sudden people are like, holy cow, how did they do that?
Yep.
So maybe this is one of those opportunities, I guess.
No, I really think it is. I really think, and I think, I think it's an awesome show for a summertime fair. I think he just, there's certain shows that you kind of think you're just outside in the summertime enjoying music, and he, to me, totally fits that. So, I think it's going to be phenomenal.
It's funny. This past week, Brian Wilson, who was an integral part of the Beach Boys and really one of the founding members, and wrote so many great songs. I can remember, and I think it was, it's probably 15 years ago now.
Yeah,
2008 maybe, when the radio station and the fair, and I think the Paramount, everybody combined to bring the Beach Boys into the fairgrounds. I think it was in July. Maybe I'm off by a month or so. But I remember that was like, how did you guys get the Beach Boys to come here? And so hopefully this will be just as successful, and as you say, hopefully a sold-out show.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely what we're hoping for, and we're definitely getting a great response to it, so that's awesome. So
Oliver Anthony will be there on Saturday evening. I want to mention the Maple products and the Maple Barn. That's one of my favorite things to do. And buy my maple candy at the fair each year. We mentioned the Racing Pigs; they'll be back in the same location, probably. Or
Yep. Okay. So we do have Cook's Racing Pigs this year. Wayne Rosaire, unfortunately, has faced some health things, and he's off the road for the year. So we booked in Cook's Racing Pigs, and we do wish Wayne all the best and hope that, it is in next year we're welcoming him back and that he's going to join us. So yes, the Racing Pigs will be here. We also this year have Pirate Man Dan back, who's always a trip. Everybody loves to see Pirate Man Dan. And connected to Pirate Man Dan, we have one of his new wandering acts, which is Turbo the Tractor. He built it's a tractor that interacts with kids, and I truly haven't even talked to him to know all the ins and outs, if it's remote control or what it is. But this tractor is going to wander around and it talks to you, and it's going to be on the fairgrounds. And then we also have the Moving Mermaid. So she has got this also, again, another traveling act, going to make her way around the grounds. The truth behind the story is it's Pirate Man Dan's wife that does that. So she will be dressed and in her moving shell around the fairgrounds that everybody can check her out. We did... sadly, and some people may have seen it on our Facebook page, we lost Lisa, who ran Horses about a few weeks ago, and our hearts still go out to her and her family. She was a major part of the fair for a number of years, so we do send our condolences out to her family, and we are going to miss Horses on our grounds. But aside from Pirate Man Dan and, of course, the Racing Pigs, we also are having a new entertainment center, I guess, so to speak, in that we've got Agri-Golf coming, which is a miniature golf course that gets set up on your fairgrounds. And the reason they call it Agri-Golf is it's got agricultural trivia, so that it's a learning experience as you play the holes of golf. So that is a new attraction, and we've rented them for the week. It's going to be a free attraction included in admission for the fairgoer that comes down. We also have Touch a Truck being organized again, and that's continued to grow and be another amazing just area of the fairgrounds that I know the kids love going to and just seeing as well. We also have a shark encounter and a stingray encounter. So they bring in tanks, and it's an experience to be able to see actual live sharks and stingrays up close and personal, so to speak, and be able to check them out and be able to see them up close. So we're going to have that. And then a little bit of a change in that they're going to be located at the Sugar House stage for the week. Grand Illusions by the Blooms are back again. They've been with us usually every other year. They're an act that switches their route up every year. So they're going to be back this year with Rory the dinosaur wandering around as well. And that's everybody looks forward to seeing the Blooms. And I know you mentioned the Sugar House. We would be remiss not to mention that they were just featured, and actually the fair got reached out to and pointed HGTV in their direction. And, the HGTV did a whole thing on all 50 states and picked a fair from every state and what you can't miss when you go to that fair. And at the Vermont State Fair, it was the maple that got selected, which doesn't surprise, I'm sure, either of us.
No, I got to tell you, I spend $100 or more every year buying boxes of maple candy and freezing it. And then and once you open a box and they're like $5 a box, I mean, how can you? I can't stop eating it. It's just, I go through the whole box in one setting. But okay, so there's two other things I wanted to mention with respect to the fairgrounds. We mentioned the Summer Smash on the 4th of July. The Rave Car Show will be in, I believe, the week after that. And this is something that's been near and dear to my heart for many years. They take part of their 50-50 and give it to the WSYB Christmas Fund each year. And they will again this year, from what I'm told. And it's one of those shows that you got to go down and enjoy it, because you'll see more different kinds of vehicles than you'll see in any other show that I've ever been to. So it isn't just Model Ts, and it isn't just, the latest and greatest from the 2000s and up. It's the 50s cars, the 60s cars, there's trucks, motorcycles, it's everything. And I'm not sure what year it is. It's got to be 78, I think, was the first year, if I'm remembering right. And all but, I think, 1 year it's been at the Vermont State Fairgrounds. They did go up to Pico one year, and it just didn't work out. But anyway, they'll be back. It's always the second weekend in July, second full weekend in July. So that will be coming up.
And also, Brian, as we're airing today, so folks could go out and go down today after listening to this program, For the Love of Kids car show is going out on the grounds. Ted Schlosky's organized that for a number of years. And again, these car shows, all of them have such great causes. As you know, you just mentioned Rave's cause. And For the Love of Kids car show, of course, goes to the Shriners Hospital. And they do a phenomenal job. So, so today, if you're interested in going down, they'll be accepting patrons. They'll probably still be accepting entries even, and can definitely go down and check it out. And again, I think you're right. I think For the Love of Kids and Rave, just such a wider range of vehicles that they accept now. That's really, really some spectacular. And then mentioning all the car shows and giving them all their due, the Eurobuilt car show will be the weekend after the fair. Okay. So that'll be the Sunday afterwards. And Scott Herdling does a great job with that as well. Great cause there as well, raising money, and get your Euro car fix on that weekend.
Want to shout out to Teddy Schlosky because he's been doing that for a while, and I get down there on occasion. I don't necessarily get there every year, but I try to at least make an appearance. And I will get down to the Rave Car Show for sure, probably on Sunday. The other thing that we're going to take a break here in a second, but we brought a lot of people over to Castleton University, or excuse me, it's the Vermont State University at Castleton, I guess, for Bring Back the Trades. That was an event that was in May, and I don't know but what they've already outgrown it. They had over 2,000 high school and grammar age kids at that, and I think it was over 50 vendors or something. It was just an unbelievably, for the first year, it was great. And there was talk, I don't know whether it's reached your level, but there was talk of, they outgrew Castleton, maybe they'll have it there again next year. I don't know. But at some point, the fair seems like a pretty good place to do that. Yeah,
we actually, Lyle Jepson and I had some conversations prior to them landing on Castleton for the first year, and the fair definitely is on the list and very interested in being connected to it as well. And maybe that conversation will continue because we very much were interested and looking forward to having that conversation as well.
Yeah. It went off without any hesitation, and it was just tremendously successful. So hopefully it'll definitely happen next year. Where it is, we don't know yet, but Bring Back the Trades was a great, great event. And another kind of thing where, Rutland County is, when you get up north and you get in that dome and you're in the State House, sometimes we don't get our due in terms of what we actually accomplish down here. But I think it's a great place to be, and we continue to see change, and that's okay. I mean, there's a lot of good traditional things going on too. So we'll take our next break here on Catamount Community Connection. We're talking to Robert Congdon from the fair, and we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Catamount Community Connection. I'm your host, Brian Collamore. Each week on Sunday, we take a look at the area in terms of political leaders, professional, business, nonprofit. Today we're talking to Robert Congdon from the fair. And by the way, the show is brought to you by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, Inc., which has brought you the Vermont State Fair at Rutland since 1846. This year's fair, it doesn't seem like it's that close, folks, but guess what? It's only a few weeks away, August 12th through the 16th at the Vermont State Fairgrounds. And we've talked a lot about some of the acts that you're going to see this year at the Vermont State Fair. Summer Smash before that, a couple of car shows, a commercial truck show. I think we covered that pretty well. I did want to mention tomorrow and Tuesday are scheduled veto days in the legislature. So these were dates where we were asked to set aside and not schedule anything so we could go up again to the State House. And right now, I believe there are 3 vetoes. I don't know whether they'll all be considered or not. One of them goes back a ways, and forgive me for not realizing the number or anything, but there was a bill that, in essence, allowed the legislature to force the governor to do something in his budget. And because of a constitutional issue with the separation of powers, I don't think that one's going to be taken up because the legislature has no authority over the governor in terms of what he puts in the budget. It's a separate budget, and he decides that. Secondly, the part of the judicial system, our judiciary, was going to be allowed to organize, form a union, and then collectively bargain. The governor vetoed that, I think, 2 weeks ago. And then last week, he also vetoed what is known as H-91. This is an act relating to the Vermont Homeless Emergency Assistance and Responsive Transition to Housing Program. And he mentioned in his letter to the clerk of the House why he did it. He said, "For quite some time, I've talked about the need to put an end to the pandemic-era hotel-motel program. We are the only state in the region that continues to operate an emergency housing program at this scale, and unfortunately, this bill does not adequately reduce the size or cost of the program. In fact, it proposes we spend millions of dollars more than the $45 million used last year." So he has vetoed that. Also, I don't think that will be taken up. For those of you that don't know, it requires a 2/3 vote in both chambers in order to overturn a veto. The last one I talked about, the hotel motel one, I don't think is going to be approved in the Senate because if I remember correctly, there were 12 no votes on the bill when it came up for floor action, and one of the members who probably would have voted to make it 13 no's was not present that day. And all in the Senate you need is 11 to, in essence, sustain a veto. So I think that one will not happen. And the other one, with respect to the judiciary, I don't think in the House they'll have enough votes to override. So in essence, even though it's called the veto session, we may not be taking up any vetoes, but there will be other bills to consider. And of course, the big one is the education bill. And even as Robert and I are recording this, there is a committee of conference still trying to decide what the best way forward is going to be with respect to, in many ways, reducing property taxes for people, because that's the way we fund our educational system. And whether or not they come to an agreement by tomorrow or Tuesday, I don't know. There'll also be an elections bill that came out of my government operations committee that I hope we will pass. And I will do everything I can on Monday to put that into all remaining stages of passage and then send it to the House on Tuesday and hope they also suspend rules to get that to the governor. There may be other bills, I don't know. There is one, by the way, which will figure into the military retirement pension and also increase the Social Security exemptions by $5,000. If you're a single filer, I believe it goes to $55,000 a year. And if you're married filing jointly, $75,000 a year. That amount would be exempt from income tax. And the military one is $125,000 AGI, and that will be exempt as well. And hopefully that does get taken up and passed. So there are some bills that probably will be taken up tomorrow and Tuesday. And hopefully the education piece will also be one that we can vote on, assuming that everybody's in alignment. And the governor's been engaged in that process all along. So we'll have to see what comes out of that. So we have probably, 7 or 8 minutes left, Robert. Is there anything else we want to mention with respect to not necessarily just the Vermont State Fair, the other fairs around? I hope everybody's still doing well and, getting Vermonters to attend their own fair.
Yeah, I think there's a full slate across the state, like we expect. I know some of the events have already kicked off and are already underway. Some of the earlier ones are already taking place. I know, everybody looks with great anticipation to what happens on the fairgrounds. I guess we could mention the fact that one of the things that we continue to watch and the state is continuing to watch is ultimately it's bird flu, but it's transmitted essentially through cows at this point, and there's a lot of talk about that. And I know specific to all state fairs, Vermont State Fairs anyway, we've been notified that waterfowl, so they're one of the bigger carriers of it at this point. I know that this year you're not going to see waterfowl at the fairgrounds at least, and they're continuing to monitor the rest of the situation. At least in our region right now, it seems to be under control. It doesn't seem to be anything extremely concerning. I mean, it's a concern, but it's not an extreme concern right now. But going to fairs, it's also just notable that that's one of the reasons you're seeing more increased signage about, making sure you're washing your hands and making sure you're staying on top of, hygiene, not just for the cows, but for yourself as well. But again, no confirmed cases as of yet in our region. And that's something that we're hoping and watching and, planning that hopefully there's not going to be. I know they're particularly watching at this point. I think it's been California that's been pretty hard hit and making sure that it doesn't make its way across the country. And especially, in this region, if it hits one of the high dairy areas like Pennsylvania, we would be extremely concerned up here, just, if it was to continue to spread. But again, we're taking our leads from the state on that, and the state veterinarians are well aware and on top of it and making sure that they're keeping an eye on it. For us, we're continuing here to do more construction projects. I guess some highlights to pass on that we're excited about. We're bringing back the upstairs of the 4-H building this year. So there's some plans. Actually, just the other night, we officially have a fish and game superintendent on the fair again. Fish and game had been something that had kind of taken a little bit of a backseat. I think COVID didn't help anything either, but it had kind of waned on the fairgrounds, and half of the upstairs of the 4-H building is going to be fair sponsored this year. And 4-H will be filling the other half, but we're going to be putting some fish and game displays back in, trying to get some different agencies, some different folks back in. And I guess if there's any listeners out there, we want to engage again with VAST and snowmobile clubs as well to get a presence of them back on the fairgrounds again, and VASA as well for ATVs enthusiasts as well. So we are definitely moving forward with that. The renovations inside the building are almost complete as far as getting things buttoned back up and ready to be used, and that's exciting. That's an exciting process to see. On top of that, we've had other infrastructure type projects that are done. We're completing actually tomorrow a water line upgrade on the fairgrounds to help with our agricultural area. We've had some issues with water pipes that go back to the 1950s and 60s that are well dated that needed to be replaced. So we're doing things like that, and we're getting in the coming weeks, working through the process on that right now. We're going to be having our last ADA bathroom installed on the agricultural side of the fairgrounds. So all of our facilities have at least one ADA compliant bathroom for our folks that may be mobility impaired when they come down to the fairgrounds. We wanted to really make an effort on that, and it's exciting to see that come to completion. And that is part of our capital grant funds from the state, which allow that to happen, and it's exciting to see that coming to conclusion as well. And we're working on, we've still got a machine shed that needs to be rebuilt. We've got, just lots of different things. So we're not by any means in the midst of facing this 3-acre stuff, rolling over and being done. We're moving on. That we're going to be in existence for another 100 years. We want to keep on keeping on. So that's our plan.
Speaking of which, I love Ray Mooney's Facebook page. You must be, you might be from Rutland. Yeah, you might be from Rutland if ... And he puts old pictures on there all the time, which bring back great memories. And lately, they've been featuring the fair. And so while I realized we're not going to ever go back to some of the events that we had at the fair,
Sure.
like girly shows and things like that, it's fun to look back. And in 100 years from now, they'll look back on this year's fair and say, boy, weren't those the days, huh? I think.
Yeah, Ray does a great job. And I remember he came down, it was probably 4 years ago now, and we opened up and we were doing the bathrooms I still refer to it as the industrial building, but it's the Vermont building. And we got opened up and we're getting ready to start building. And we uncovered all of the charred lumber underneath, and it was from the fire, from back, and that would have been, I forget which fire we finally traced it back to. It would have been, I think, somewhere around 1930, 28, 29, somewhere in there, and that. Sure enough, started tracing back through pictures and discovered that little lean-to section of the building survived. You can still see it standing, and sure enough, that's where the fire stopped. And so we're uncovering history that's really exciting as well. And we try to preserve that as best as possible in our museum, and so people can enjoy that and see back, to what things were. And it's not going to be too much longer. There's some years still left to go, but we're going to be, looking at 100 years on the grandstand and, things like that we're going to be celebrating as well. And also we're starting to brainstorm and starting to look and are open to ideas. What do we do in Rutland to celebrate next year and to celebrate what it signifies with the, just the reality of the celebrations next year. So.
Well, continued success. I really appreciate you taking time out to join us. And I'll just remind people again, the Vermont State Fair at Rutland, which is put on by the Rutland County Agricultural Society, Inc., is coming up August 12th through the 16th this year. Get your tickets as early as you can. We've already heard that the Oliver Anthony show, which will be on Saturday, tickets are selling briskly, and you don't want to be left out of that. There is a Summer Smash coming up on the 4th of July, and you want to get tickets for that as well. And then, of course, the annual Rutland Fair Summer Smash is also, the Demo Derby is also coming up. So lots of stuff to do and see, and we hope for, my hope for you is every day is sunny and 76, and no rain until the day before and the day after the fair.
That's right. We're ready for this rain to get that out of its system so that we can enjoy fair time with this rain behind us. So,
well, thank you again, Robert, for joining us. Robert Congdon, who's president of the Rutland County Agricultural Society and also president of all the fairs in the state of Vermont. And hopefully this fair will go down as another super successful one, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you after the fair to get kind of a report.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thanks for having me. And again, thank you for your support in Montpelier and always in this area as well, as we seek to put these events on for the public, because it's not for us, it's definitely for them.
Yeah. And we'll see all of you next week here on Catamount Community Connection.